Windows Server 2019 System Administration. Welcome back everybody. I'm Prakash Badan, your trainer for this entire series. In today's topic, we are going to discuss about the FSMO role. Since this topic is a bit lengthy in order to understand clearly in your domain environment, so that's why I'm going to break down this series into two videos. So this one will be treated as a video one for the FSMO role of your server. Now, what is FSMO role, how it works, what is the importance of knowing this FSMO role, entire thing we are going to see today in detail. So let's move to this FSMO role. Normally when your domain controller is promoted for the first time, that means whenever you install a server family operating system and you happen to promote it into a domain controller in order to work as your client server architecture to provide a better facility in your network environment. In that case, the first server that you install in your network will hold a global catalog server actually. That means the first server that you install or promote in your network environment, that will hold a one role actually that we call a global catalog server. So it's by default installed in a first domain controller. Now, what is this global catalog server? Okay, now actually this global catalog server is the first server in your domain A environment that is installed, and the roles and the responsibilities that is provided to this global catalog server itself is a FSMO actually. So that means the first disease responsibility and roles is only known as a FSMO. Okay, so the main objective over here of this global catalog is to manage entire object, okay, in your entire forest environment. That means the first computer that is promoted as a domain controller will hold the global catalog server, and the main important work of this global catalog is to look after the entire objects and manage in your forest environment. But for the better understanding, or let's say for better functionality of this global catalog server as a FSMO role, that means FSMO role is the responsibility, okay, or the duty that is being assigned to the global catalog server. So this global catalog server holds the FSMO roles actually. Okay, it's a responsibility of global catalog to perform this entire task in a form of your FSMO roles. So this FSMO roles, for its better functionality, it is actually divided into two parts. One is over here, as you can see, one is your let's see this one, forest wide, and second one is the domain wide. That means the FSMO role is actually break down into two parts. One part will look after the forest wide, and second one will work for the domain wide. Okay, now let's see in detail what are the functions of this forest wide roles, and the next one is a domain wide roles. This is in a first forest. Okay, now when we see the forest wide, the function or the responsibility that is being assigned under the global catalog in form of FSMO roles. The first one is the schema master role, this one. Okay, schema master roles, its responsibility is actually to keep the track or to inform the rest of the trees in your network environment about the information of adding or removing any tree in a forest. That means if you are in a forest wide, you are performing some tasks. Okay, in a forest, if any tree is added or any tree is removed, so someone has to take the responsibility of keeping the track of entire this thing. So that responsibility is actually given to the schema master role over here, and that one is a forest wide, not domain wide. Okay, this works in a forest. Now second one is the domain naming master. This is the second role of the FSMO. You might have noticed that when you promote your server as a domain controller, in some case it will do the act of searching the domain name that you have chosen just now. That means it will go and search whether this name is being used in your forest or not. For example, right now my domain name is viatech.com. So when I promote this server as a domain controller using my domain name, your viatech.com, so by the time I provide the name, this viatech.com, the first it will go in a forest and definitely it will try to search if there is any tree having the similar name, so that there is no conflict in your network environment. That means the main work of domain naming master is to make sure that the similar name in a domain for some other tree is not used. That means viatech.com can be only one in my network environment. If there is any other domain that would like to have this name, so they have two options. Either you work as a additional domain controller, or second one, you can work as a child domain. Okay, because the similar name cannot be used. That means this is only forest wide. So in the schema role, there are 5 roles: schema master role, I mean to say FSMO role. In a FSMO role, there are 5 roles. Number 1 is schema master role. Second one is a domain naming master role. Third one is the read master, PDC emulator, and infrastructure master. So these 2 roles are forest wide. Schema master, again I repeat, it keeps the track of adding or removing any tree in a forest. And this domain naming master of your FSMO role, it keeps the track of the name of your domain actually. That means there is no conflict in your domain. Like whenever you create any object, okay, the similar named object cannot be created. It will track automatically. Okay, so this kind of works are actually done by the domain naming master over here for avoiding the conflicting of your domain name. Okay, now when we move to the next FSMO role, that is a domain wide. The first one is the forest wide. In a domain wide, there are 3 roles. Okay, let's see in detail. The first domain wide FSMO role is a read master. Okay, now whenever we create any object, okay, like that might be your computer account, that might be your user account, that might be your any group. Okay, so whenever any object is created, that object is used to assign one unique ID that we call SID. Okay, so the function of this read master in a domain is to provide a unique SID to any object that you create. For example, RAM. If I create one object named RAM, and again you try to create the RAM, that's not possible. Okay, because the one your object having a similar name cannot be recreated. But later on, once later on you deleted that object, let's say named RAM that we use as an instance. Okay, you deleted that RAM who was having this shared permission in some files or folder, and you again recreated the RAM. Trust me, that the user will not get the permission to those files and folders which was being assigned previously to that client. Why? Now SID will be changed. And the work of generating SID, unique SID, is being done by read master in your domain environment. Okay, now the fourth one over here in our case is the PDC emulator. Okay, now the work of this PDC emulator is whenever we change the password of any object in a tree, that has to be updated in a domain environment actually. Okay, so when we change any password, that has to be updated to other trees in a domain. So that responsibility is being issued to the PDC emulator. There is another one work that's been assigned to this PDC emulator domain wide, that is a clock synchronization. That means whatever clock is being set in your domain environment, in your domain controller, that has to be synchronized to your rest of the trees in your domain wide. Okay, and the last role that comes under the FSMO role, 5 FSMO role, that is the infrastructure role. Now the main work of this infrastructure role in your domain wide infrastructure is to actually share the information of one domain to another domain in your forest trust. That means when in a forest one domain is brought certain change, that means one domain does certain change, that information has to be shared to the next domain in your forest. Instance, you can see as a tree also. That means in a forest, when there is a trust between two domains, between two forests, so this trust has to be two-way trust. That means from the one forest, whatever informations are being updated, that updated information has to be shared to your other forest also. So that work is actually done by the infrastructure master. Now the question comes, or the is some sort of the answer I've already given over here. Whenever any server is promoted as a domain controller, that first domain will hold the global catalog server, and the FSMO means the responsibility of that global catalog server that holds all these roles. That means schema master role, domain naming master role, read master role, PD simulator role, infrastructure master role. In that case, if I take you to my one server over here, and this is my domain controller, okay, let's try this. This is viatech.com. It's my domain controller. It's a first domain in a forest. So in that case, now all the five those FSMO master role, okay, has to be in this domain itself. Those FSMO roles has to be here only. Okay, now how to check that? I will take you to the root. This is my habit. I always work in the root. Now, in order to check whether this first server, that is a global catalog server, holds those five your FSMO rules or not, for that you need to hit this command. It's simple. netdom query FSMO. netdom query FSMO. Now, if you see over here, all these five roles are in my domain only, in this local server. See, schema master, this is in a DC. Domain naming master, this is in DC. PD simulator in DC. Read pool manager in DC. Entire these five FSMO roles are actually installed in my first global catalog server. So in our next video, we are going to see that where are all these FSMO roles. Okay, apart from that, we'll be also learning how to transfer all these FSMO roles from your one server to the next server. So if the information regarding these FSMO roles were informative to you and you understood the functioning of this, please do like and subscribe. Thank you.